I mean, Ron Paul says it best when he says foreign aid is when you take money from poor people in rich countries and give it to rich people in poor countries.
But they also need to realize that when Republicans up here, the majority of Republicans still are big proponents of foreign aid. If you take a poll of the general public, Republicans, Democrats, and independents, it's about 77% of people who would eliminate foreign aid. So they have to understand they're on the wrong side of some of these issues, and that by Ron Paul people getting in place in the party, you're going to find that, guess what? That if we want to balance our budget, we're going to have to cut spending in a lot of different areas.
Yeah, and it is a very conservative position to be against foreign aid. After all, if Americans want to aid foreigners, they're free to do it. Take your money, send it to whatever causes you want overseas. But why should the government do it? Why should the government seize money from American citizens and then dole it out the way it sees fit? Because in most cases, all they do is they prop up the despots. I mean, your father describes it best. Foreign aid is when the government takes money from poor people in rich countries and gives it to rich people in poor countries.
Yeah, and there's case after case of tyrants, dictators, people who torture their people, people who steal from their people. You know, Mobutu in Africa got money from us for 20-some-odd years, and there are all kinds of horrific stories out there of the torture that his political opponents underwent and of how his people starve, have no running water and electricity, and yet he had 7 of the largest palaces in the world built for him all over the world.
And we've got that blood on our hands. If we're, as Americans, are supporting that, then we're partially to blame. And, in all this foreign aid, nobody is stopping individual Americans from giving aid to anybody they want overseas.
No.
The problem is, why should the government do it? Because when the government does it, it doesn't go to the poor people. It goes to the governments that are making the poor people poor.
Yes. Did you know, Peter, that since for the last 60 years, we've sent about $1 trillion of our tax money over to Africa in the form of aid, $1 trillion. And it turns out the actual real income, the per capita income of Africans is actually lower today than it was before we started sending aid. We fund warlords over there. We fund these corrupt dictators. It never gets to the people living in squalor. And even if some of it does go just for photo ops, the warlords take it away once the photo ops are done, and they feed their armies and they have lavish lifestyles.
Yeah, it goes for ammunition. It goes to have their armor-plated Mercedes-Benz limousines so these guys don't have to worry about anybody killing them. I mean, that's where all the money goes. I mean, that's the problem. I mean, Ron Paul says it best when he says foreign aid is when you take money from poor people in rich countries and give it to rich people in poor countries. What we want is Americans giving money directly to causes that are actually helping people, not helping to keep people impoverished, which is what most of our foreign aid does.
Yeah, and if we want to help Africa, then we can encourage people to buy African products made by Africans, encourage goods and services and trade. Just giving them handouts throughout the decades clearly has done nothing but keep people living in squalor.
I know. We know handouts don't work, even in our own country.